The Direwolves of Asgard and the End of the World. Y-1. Mythological context. The story of the Direwolves of Asgard unfolds in a universe that breathes Norse mythology, a world where gods, giants, and fantastic creatures live side by side. To understand this rich and symbolic narrative, it is essential to delve into the mythological context that underpins it. Imagine an environment where the force of nature and human emotions are intertwined, reflecting the beliefs and values of a culture that, although it has its roots in the past, still resonates with many of us today. The Norse gods, such as Odin, Thor, and Loki, are central figures in this scenario, each with their own powers, weaknesses, and stories. Odin, with his wisdom and relentless search for knowledge, is often considered a father to the gods. Thor, the god of thunder, represents brute strength and protection. Loki, on the other hand, brings the complexity and nuances of betrayal and cunning. These characters are not just mythical figures, they reflect aspects of human nature, such as ambition, love, fear, and courage. In short, the mythological context of the Direwolves of Asgard offers us a rich tapestry of stories and lessons that remain vibrant and meaningful. Through this lens, we can not only admire the beauty of mythology, but also find inspiration to face the direwolves that inhabit our own worlds. Thus, the journey into Norse mythology becomes one of self-discovery and empowerment. 2. The Direwolves. The direwolves, present in Norse mythology, are not only immense creatures, but they symbolize destructive forces that can shake the world as we know it. When I think of them, I imagine a powerful and menacing presence, representing not only destruction but also the chaos that can arise in our lives. In the narrative, these wolves are closely linked to the apocalypse, and their image evokes feelings of fear and awe. These are creatures that make us reflect on what is really at stake when we talk about forces beyond our control. These wolves have a direct connection to untamed nature and primal instincts. They are not only monsters to be feared, but they also represent the internal struggle that we all face. In our lives, we often come across challenges that resemble these wolves, moments of chaos, despair, and uncertainty. When we face these situations, it is as if we are fighting against giant wolves that want to devour us. The presence of wolves in the narrative is also a reminder that, within each of us, there is a duality. On the one hand, we have the desire for peace and harmony, while on the other, there is the internal struggle that we often cannot control. This struggle can be seen as a metaphor for the conflicts that we experience daily. I believe that, by understanding this duality, we can learn to better deal with our emotions and challenges. Giant wolves are also associated with the prophecy of the end of the world. This prophecy is not just a prediction of destruction, but a call to reflect on what we are doing with our lives and the world around us. When people talk about the apocalypse, they are often referring to drastic changes that may occur in their lives, and this is something that we all experience at different times. The fear of loss, change, and the unknown is a constant in our journeys. Finally, reflection on destiny and free will becomes essential. We live in a world where the choices we make have consequences. The direwolves remind us that, although there are forces that we cannot control, we still have the ability to decide how to react to them. Life is a dance between what is imposed on us and what we choose, and this lesson is fundamental to living consciously. 3. Prophecy of the End of the World. The prophecy of the end of the world is a theme that resonates deeply in cultures around the globe, and in Norse mythology, this idea takes on dramatic and poetic contours. It is fascinating to think that, amidst powerful gods and mythical creatures, there is a prediction of destruction that is not only a catastrophic event, but also a moment of transformation. This narrative leads us to reflect on the inevitability of destiny and how it intertwines with our choices. In the story of the Direwolves of Asgard, the prophecy warns us of the arrival of a time known as Ragnarok. This term may sound distant, but it is essential to understand it as the Norse apocalypse, an event that brings to light the struggle between the forces of good and evil. It is an epic battle that involves the most revered gods, such as Odin and Thor, and terrifying creatures, such as the direwolves, which symbolize destruction and chaos. Over the centuries, this narrative has taught us that life is a constant struggle between light and darkness. As I reflect on this prophecy, I realize that it also serves as a mirror to our own lives. We all face challenges and moments that seem to indicate the end of something important. However, like the characters in this mythology, we have the ability to fight against our destiny. The story shows us that even in the face of a dark prophecy, there is always the possibility of change. It encourages us to examine our own beliefs and fears, recognizing that oftentimes we are the ones who define what is the end and what is a new beginning. Ultimately, the prophecy serves as a reminder that the end is often just the beginning of a new journey. What may seem like a loss can actually be an opportunity for growth and renewal. May we learn from the Direwolves and the gods of Asgard by always seeking the light, even when darkness seems to dominate. Main characters. The main characters in a narrative are fundamental, as they are the ones who guide us through the story and allow us to connect emotionally with the events that unfold. In The Direwolves of Asgard and the End of the World, these protagonists are not just figures who play roles, but rather representatives of human complexities and universal dilemmas. Each one brings with them a rich baggage, with fears, hopes, and above all, the fight against a destiny that seems to have already been written. One of the most striking protagonists is a Norse god, who, despite his celestial origins, faces deeply human issues. He is a being who, in a moment of vulnerability, realizes that power is not everything. Throughout the story, he fights to change the course of the prophecy that predicts the apocalypse. This search for change is something that many of us can relate to. Who has never felt trapped by a destiny that seems inevitable? This god's courage in defying what is written inspires us to believe that, even in the darkest situations, there is always a chance to rewrite the narrative of our lives. Finally, the richness of the main characters in The Direwolves of Asgard and the End of the World allows us to explore profound and universal themes such as courage, sacrifice, and the eternal struggle against destiny. By connecting with these figures, we are invited to reflect on our own choices and the impact they have on our lives. Through this narrative, it becomes clear that no matter how bleak the situation may seem, there is always the possibility of transformation and a new beginning. This message resonates strongly, especially in times of uncertainty, making us believe that, just like the characters, we too can shape our destiny. 5. Conflicts and alliances. In the fascinating universe of Norse mythology that we are exploring, conflicts and alliances between gods, wolves, and other mythical creatures play a central role in the narrative. These clashes are not just physical fights, they represent the eternal battle between order and chaos, between light and darkness. Just as in real life, where we are often faced with decisions that can lead us to form bonds or to conflict, the characters in this story face similar dilemmas. The tension between the gods and the direwolves is palpable. On one side, we have the gods, who represent order, justice, and the maintenance of balance in the world. They are figures of authority and wisdom, but they are also immersed in their own weaknesses and ambitions. On the other side, the wolves, creatures of brute strength and primal instinct, symbolize chaos and impending destruction. They do not only play the role of antagonists, they are manifestations of the fears and uncertainties that we all face at some point in our lives. Finally, the conflicts and alliances in Norse mythology teach us about the complexity of human relationships. In a world where the struggle between good and evil is a constant, the way we choose to unite and face challenges can determine not only our fate, but also that of those we love. The story is an invitation to reflect. What kind of alliances are we forming in our lives? Are we ready to set aside our differences for the greater good? These are questions I believe we all need to consider. Theme of sacrifice. The theme of sacrifice is central to many narratives, especially in stories that involve the struggle between good and evil, as in The Direwolves of Asgard and the End of the World. Sacrifice, at its core, is the giving up of something valuable for the greater good. This idea resonates deeply in traditions and beliefs throughout history, and it is something that we have all confronted at some point in our lives. In Norse mythology, sacrifice is not just a physical action, but also implies an emotional and spiritual state. The characters who face the direwolves, for example, must be willing to give up their own desires and ambitions, whether out of love, friendship, or a sense of duty. In this context, sacrifice becomes a form of transcendence. As someone who has reflected on life's hardships, I can attest that it is often these moments of surrender that truly define us. When we talk about sacrifice, it is important to consider what is at stake. In the case of the narrative, the survival of the world and the preservation of cosmic order are the greatest precious things that the heroes are willing to protect. Imagine yourself at a crucial moment in your life, having to make a decision that will impact not only you, but everyone around you. This is the emotional depth that the story explores, revealing the dilemma that many face. How far would you go to protect what you love? Therefore, as we explore the theme of sacrifice in the Direwolves of Asgard and the end of the world, we are invited to consider not only what we are willing to give up, but also what we can gain through our choices. Sacrifice is not just a loss, it is an opportunity for rebirth and rediscovery. And as in every good story, the true value of sacrifice is revealed in the lessons we learn along the way. 7. The final fight. The final fight is a pivotal moment in any narrative, especially in stories involving mythologies and epic battles. This is no different in this context. At this point in the narrative, the characters are confronted with the reality of what is at stake. The apocalypse is not just a distant idea, it becomes palpable, almost a shadow that stretches over their lives and the world as we know it. Personally, when I think about this final fight, I feel a deep connection with the idea of resistance. Life often presents us with challenges that seem insurmountable, and it is at this moment that we are tested. The character's final fight brings to light the essence of what it means to fight for survival, not only physically, but also spiritually. Each of the protagonists, as they prepare for the confrontation, reflects on their own internal battles, their doubts and fears. It is an echo of our own journey. In the narrative, this decisive battle is not just a matter of brute force. It involves strategy, unexpected alliances, and, above all, courage. The gods, known for their immense power, now find themselves in a scenario where their weaknesses are exposed. What really matters in the end? Skills, weapons, or the determination to fight for those we love? This reflection is one of the most powerful messages the narrative offers us. The giant wolves, which represent chaos and destruction, are not merely creatures to be defeated. They symbolize our deepest fears and the forces that seek to bring us down. In the final fight, the characters face these wolves not only in a physical sense, but also emotionally and psychologically. By confronting their own shadows, they learn that the real battle often takes place within ourselves. Therefore, in reflecting on the final fight, we are invited to think about our own battles. Are we ready to fight? Are we willing to sacrifice and unite in search of a better future? As in Asgard, the answer can change everything. Saturn 8. Reflection on destiny. At the end of such an intense journey, it is natural to stop and reflect on destiny and free will. Norse mythology, with its rich and complex stories, teaches us that destiny may seem inevitable, but there is always room for choice. In the narrative of the giant wolves of Asgard, we see that even the gods, beings considered supreme, face their limitations and challenges. This dynamic makes us question, to what extent are we really masters of our choices? I believe that many of us, throughout our lives, have come across situations in which we feel that life is pushing us in a specific direction. It may be a feeling that we are trapped by a pre-established destiny, like the characters who fight against the prophecy that announces the apocalypse. However, the beauty of our journey lies precisely in the ability to, even when faced with great difficulties, choose how to react and which paths to follow. This struggle, which we see reflected in the epic battles of the narrative, is a representation of our own internal struggle. Finally, in reflecting on destiny and free will, we are invited to look within ourselves. What choices have we made? Are we allowing fear or uncertainty to determine our decisions, or are we embracing the courage to shape our own future? History reminds us that even in the face of powerful and seemingly uncontrollable forces, there is always room for choice and transformation. In short, reflecting on destiny and free will encourages us to be the protagonists of our lives. No matter how challenging the circumstances, the journey is ours, and the decisions we make can, in fact, alter the course of our story. May we always seek the light of conscience and the courage to choose, even when the path seems dark.